Welcome to my first YouTube video. This is Tikal, Chapter 1, by Nenya 61192. All original credit for the story and characters goes to Scott Westerfield, and the credit for this whole story goes to Nenya 61192. Tikal, Chapter 1, A Request. Darren, please, just tell me what it is. Do you want to postpone the wedding for a bit? Because I'm more than willing to. No, Alec, I don't want a wedding at all, she had said, trying to mask the shakiness in her voice, but to no avail. Something wasn't right. Alec remembered the hot sting of the tears in his eyes. But why? Is studying more important than our life together? You've already become a doctor. What else do you want? Darren hesitated. Alec could see her clenching her jaw to try to bite back the tears, but it wasn't working. No, it's not that. It's just... Am I not good enough for you? Alec, of course you are. I mean... we can't be together. Her voice had betrayed her tough facade greatly in the last sentence. He felt every bone in his body break. Every tear burned his flesh. He felt nothing but pain. I love you, he said, not even trying to hide his trembling, shaky voice. I was willing to give up my empire for you, he said sharply. He hated being like this. She hadn't expected him to say those things. Did she really think she could just slither out of this without upsetting him? But she stood her ground. I'm sorry. Tears poured out of Alec's emerald eyes. He could do nothing but drop to his knees as she turned and walked away. He was awoken by a large bump the carriage went over. "A student lied," called a loud, apologetic voice from the front. It belonged to none other than Mr. Otto Klopp. He and the Count and Bauer and Hoffman had stayed in his service long after their adventures aboard Leviathan. Surprisingly, Klopp had taken a great liking to traveling, so he had asked Alec if he could accompany him as his driver whenever he went abroad. Klopp had also grown fond of beasties, both fabricated and natural, so learning to work with them hadn't been a problem, and Bover loved him, so it worked out very well. "As is okay," Alec called back. Alec was tired. He'd been traveling almost all day to get to the small Glasgow village. He'd come to Scotland for the sole purpose of responding to a letter he received from one Jaspert Sharp. It was very vague, but said that both Jaspert and his mother wished to see the Austrian Emperor immediately. It was a very important matter. He had kept in touch with Ma and Jaspert despite Darren's wishes. As long as they were sneaky about it, no one would know. No one had heard from Darren in almost 2 years anyways, so he doubted she would even find out. "Mr. Sharp," said Bovril, whose voice came from the seat beside Alec. As it stood up and peeked out the carriage window, Alec looked down at it. "Yes, but it's not the one you're hoping for," he said. They had just arrived at the Sharps' house, and Jaspert, who must have seen the carriage coming, stood in the doorway to greet Alec. He had the same light blonde hair as Darren, and almost the same eyes, too. The carriage came to a stop, and Alec took Bovril and placed him in a large bird cage. "You stay here," he instructed Dolores. "If you behave well, I'll make sure to have a treat for you." "Treat!" Dolores said excitedly. "Yes, now be good for Mr. Klopp. I'll be back." Alec placed a thin cotton sheet over the cage and went to unlatch the door. "Alec," said the handsome, tall, blonde man as he opened the carriage door. "It's so good to see you. It's been so long." He smiled. "Thank you for coming." "Indeed it has," answered Alec, smiling and shaking Jasper's hand as he stepped out of the carriage. The house looked exactly the same way when he had seen it for the first time 5 years ago, long before they were engaged. It was when Darren brought him home to meet her family. It was the least I could do, and besides, it's always nice to get away for a little while. I like Scotland quite a lot. Aye, we do too. Thanks again so much for coming. It's really going to mean a lot to Ma. Yes, I'm glad too. Where is your mother, if I may ask? She was the reason you asked me to come, Alec inquired. The two of them stepped into the small kitchen. Jasper's face fell. That's just it, he began. All right. Would you like some tea? It may be easier to explain everything if you're sitting down. Aye, Jasper said. Alec was a little taken aback by all the mysteriousness. He got up from the table. Just a week ago, he had received a letter from Jasper asking Alec to come to their house in Glasgow, bringing a wave of mother's request over Alec. It had all been in a very cryptic manner, but Alec was glad to see Darren's family, since he hadn't seen them in so long. Right next to Darren's. Jasper motioned for him to sit down. Knocked softly. Alec did so and noticed the lovely little tray of tea sweets that had been set out earlier. Aye, said a weak voice, one of which was shortbread, most likely Mrs. Sharp's recipe. Jasper pushed open the door to reveal he slyly put a piece in his pocket for Bob, who was understandably not looking her best. Jasper sat down and handed him a muff. Her face had thinned significantly. So, her hair turned a the reason I wrote to you was because Ma asked me to, and she had a constant Alec nodded, tired on her face. Yes, you said that in your letter. Alec had loved her own mother dearly, but since he there's no other way to put it, Ma had hoped to fill the void that his mother left. I'll just say it. It pained him to see her. He took a sip from his tea. Darren had certainly taken a toll on the Sharp family. She's dying. She smiled. Alec wasn't expecting that. After a moment of silence, he softly knelt by her side and stood and took her outstretched hand. Ma, he said with a small, sad smile. 2 of the medicine works. I see you got my letter, he said as he took another sip of tea. Pecked him softly on the cheek. Alec studied his expressionless face for a moment. You'll have to forgive Jasper had changed since Alex first met him. Yes, I got it, he said. And greatly at that. I'm sorry to see you aren't 5 years ago, just after Alec and Darren started working for the Zoological Society. Worse, she said with a wink. And had come out to everyone as a couple. Jasper had enjoyed tormenting and teasing Alec in every possible way. Simply because he was courting his little sister, he said as he went through Alec the door. Had seen it as disapproval and had worried about it constantly. Her blue eyes looked sad. Darren always insisted it was the opposite. Alec cleared his throat. That's just the way he is, she would say whenever they discussed the matter. He only does it because he likes you. Alexander. Eventually, Darren was proved to be correct, to Alec's pleasant surprise. Again. He and Jasper began to have real conversations together. Received a strange letter. Jasper even taught him to play a little on the guitar. A letter? Since Ma had become ill only 2 years ago, Alec interrupted. He had become the man of the house. Well, a responsibility he didn't take lightly. It was strange now to see Jasper like that. Responsible. Don't interrupt, she continued. Alec could see how the stress had taken its toll on him. Would you please fetch the envelope from my desk? Jasper obeyed. I'm so sorry, Jasper. She removed the paper. Is there anything I can do? Alec asked. It's a drawing. And we think since Ma had only one son, she'd taken a great liking to Alec. Took the paper from she enjoyed all of the proper customs Alec practiced. It was a beautiful, full-color drawing, especially the compliments he gave her regarding her cooking. A true gentleman he is, Ma had exclaimed the day he had first come to the house, and Alec couldn't stop raving about her shortbread. The bird was sitting on a branch. She even insisted he referred to her as Ma from now on, seeing as he was to become part of the family. Around it showed it was probably an observation that the artist was sitting close by. Jasper nodded. As you can see, that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. She turned and removed a folded piece of paper from the nightstand drawer. Last request. There are several similarities between the two of these. Alec nodded fervently. She handed him the folded piece of paper, and when he unfolded it, he held his breath for a moment, to Ma, and then spat it out. Love, Darren. Written across the top. She wants you to find Darren. She made that for me right before she left for the service. Alec explained. It was a picture of a small barn owl, perched on the windowsill of the Sharps' barn. He hadn't spoke to her in 2 years. Darren must have sketched this from her bedroom window. She wanted nothing to do with him. To himself. Why did Ma want him to find her? This looks like something she did, all right. Alec noted as he continued to study the owl. I know that what happened wasn't right. I'm ashamed of my sister for that, but please, just talk to Ma. Yes, Jasper she still considers you like her own. However, and ever since Darren disappeared, she hasn't been well. You may notice something a bit bring her so much peace. She handed the picture to him. Said, almost tearfully. In the plumes, there appear to be the words. Tell me what you see. Alec held the picture close, and then at arm's length from his eyes. The more he looked, the more he could see that there was definitely something there. Sparrow? De spiro sparrow? He asked. Whatever could that mean? Was it a secret message Darren was trying to tell Jasper? Actually, dum sprio sparrow, Ma corrected. You're familiar with your Latin still, I trust. Alec nodded. He thought for a moment and then said, While I have breath, I hope. Ma turned to him. That's the Sharp family motto. Alec had to restrain himself from letting out a gasp. It had to be from Darren. It's from her, Alec said. It has to be.